What's going on YouTube? So today we're going to be talking about the high compression heads. This one is the S3 from Slavens. And I'm also going to be talking about the SXS race ignition. So there's the part number there. So one of these items I'm really impressed with, and the other one I think is a little bit more hype than it's worked up to be. So let's get right into it. This will be about a 3-year review. So I've had the high compression head on for 3 years. I ran it for about a year by itself. And then everybody up talks these ignitions. They say it's supposed to add power to the entire rev range. And here's the old ignition I pulled out here. I've had this on for about 2 years with the high compression head. Quick rundown on the bike. This is a 2015, so it's carbed. It's a 300 XCW. The only modifications I have, short EFMF, stock pipe up front and everything. I have the red power valve spring in, and I have it backed out pretty much flush. Because if you guys know me, I like squeezing as much power out of everything as I can. Super, for example. And these 300s have always kind of been known for their bottom end grunt. And that's my favorite part about this high compression head. It really makes it hit hard down low, and you can pull hills in the next gear up and really lug it down. Your power valve won't even be open and you'll still be able to lug it up the hill. It is amazing. That's my favorite thing about this head. It tractors. There's so many times I'm pulling a hill, say 3rd gear, something like that, maybe 4th, and you got a good run at it, you hit a bump, you lose speed, and you don't really want to downshift because you're going to lose even more speed, and you can still keep tractoring up in that low gear and get out of a pinch that you probably normally wouldn't be able to without the head. Yeah, it turned it into a monster, it really did. This thing just pulls at any RPM. It made it almost closer to a 4-stroke power band. It obviously doesn't have the same grunt down low as a 4-stroke, but it's very impressive for what it is. And if you have a pipe on your bike already, with that high compression head, it sounds unreal. It gives it a deeper exhaust note and a just throaty sound. It's amazing. You'll love it. The high compression head is worth every penny. Let's go to the bench and I'll give you a rundown. So there's the proof that I'm running the red power valve spring. There's the green one and the yellow one in there. This is the stock piston I pulled out. That was after 80 hours. Pretty impressed. No real noticeable wear or anything like that. Here's the stock head. Nothing really fancy there. And this is the Slavens S3. So you have these high compression inserts. You can get 3 different inserts. This one is the AA. And I have the AAA installed in the bike right now. You can see that the AAA is supposed to be for higher elevation, 6,000 to 12,000 feet. And the AA here is from sea level to 6,000 feet. And I'm going to tell you right now that they leave a lot of wiggle room on this. I'm at about 2,100 feet elevation. So I would say my most common riding is around 2,000 feet, maybe up to 3,000 if I travel a little bit. And I have the AAA installed on the bike right now. As you can see, this one's the AA that's on the bench. And I've only ran 91 octane in this bike. Never had any issues. My premix is 50-1. I've never had any detonation. I've never fouled a plug. The bike runs perfect. So they're probably just using this as a guideline to cover their own butts. I wouldn't take this to heart. I was a little scared at first because I want it to be simple and easy to use, right? I want to use pump fuel, and I was concerned about putting the high compression head in, the AAA, for 6,000 and above feet, because I don't want to be mixing race gas. I want to be able to just fill up at the pump on the way out with your buddies. Mixing gas sucks. I got a turboed sled and it's very inconvenient. I live that life in the winter with that sled. I don't want to do it in the summer with my bike. The bike's always the easy toy. So I was very relieved when 91 octane ran flawlessly in this thing. And that was with a brand new piston, new rings. It would have had perfect compression and it just ran flawlessly. So cat's out of the bag. Don't be too scared to try their higher insert head, even if you're not at those altitudes. From my experience, you're not going to have any issues, and I got buddies running the same setup, and they're on a 91 octane as well. So here's their little compression chart. It is pretty stupid. They don't actually give you any compression numbers or how much it's actually increasing, which would be a big indication to me on what fuel to run properly, but they just say high compression, high compression, or very high compression. So naturally I went with the very high, and I'm running it at 2,000 feet. Like I said, no issues on 91 pump, because that's what we have for premium here. I am a little bit disappointed. I should have tested the compression when the bike was new, so that as the bike wears, I can test compression and know what it's supposed to have. But now I can't really do that because I have no idea how much compression these inserts are supposed to make. So kind of disappointing on Slaven's part with the compression ratings, but it is what it is. I'm still really happy with the head. It performs great. Installing it was a breeze. I never had to mess with any of the jetting. Literally just plop the head on, tweak the idle a little bit, and I've been running the head for 3 years, problem-free on 91 octane. So really happy with this purchase. It is one of the cheaper heads online, but I've still never had any issues. Very pleased with it. Extremely good value for what you're getting. I think I paid just over 200 bucks, but that was 3 years ago, so likely prices have went up a little bit, like they always do. But I would purchase this again. Very happy. But with all good things in life, of course, there is one drawback. The starter. So if you've had KTMs for a while, you probably know that the starters on these two strokes kind of suck. And adding the high compression head makes them struggle. If the bike's cold, don't even try using the electric start. I know KTM claims it's for hot start use only, but most bikes will start cold with the factory head, factory electric start. Now with the high compression head, it will not fire. You could crank it till the battery dies. Don't even try. You're wasting your time. You're just gonna kill your battery. It still cranks at a decent speed, but I don't know what it is. It just won't catch, won't fire. I did everything I could. Upgraded my starter Bendix here, put a new battery in it, and it still, when it's not at full operating temp, don't even try. Even half temp, most of the time it's still not gonna catch. Now, after you've been riding the bike for 15, 20 minutes and it's got some good heat in it, the electric start does work. I would say 90, 95% of the time, it works fine when it's warm. You will get the odd time where it does crank for a while still, but it's just a sacrifice you gotta pay for all that compression. The bike struggles with that electric start. These electric starts are kind of junk, honestly. Two strokes should not be hard to start. Like, the bike starts first kick every time. I don't know why the electric start struggles so much. Still cranks the normal speed it would without the head. So to me, it's kind of frustrating, but it's just nature of the beast on these guys. All in all though, it is a pretty small price to pay. At the beginning of the day, just kickstart it, let it warm up, and your electric start does work decently after that. So just keep it in mind. Now let's move on over to this igniter. There's the part number there. I bought this from Slaven's as well. That's my stock one. So everybody claims that these igniters are supposed to increase power everywhere, your entire rev range. So naturally, I was like, heck yeah, I want more power. And it's supposed to pair up with the high compression heads even better. So it was speaking my language. I purchased it. I was really excited to try it out. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit disappointed. A lot of people hype these things up, and like, this is an honest review, no BS. On the 300s, they don't really rev out as high as a 250, because this is off a 250 instead of a 300, so you're supposed to get more top end RPM and rev it out a little higher, make power in a broader RPM range. But the only thing I really noticed with it, or the major difference, is your initial tip-in throttle. So that first quarter turn, it made it really touchy. So this is all right if you're in open area or not really anything technical. It did make it kind of fun to ride, like super touchy. It almost made it feel more responsive, but just with less throttle. If you grabbed a handful of throttle wide open, I didn't really notice anything different. So if you're at a dead stop, kind of racing your buddy or whatever, and you grabbed wide open throttle, rang it through all the gears, revved it right out to red line, and then hopped on a bike that didn't have this ignition, I don't know if you would really notice a difference, to be honest. Where you notice the difference is just putting around. If you're on single track, it's so touchy, that first quarter throttle, it makes it challenging to ride. If you're doing technical stuff, jumping logs, and like enduro style riding, I would not purchase this again. I find myself getting fatigued very quickly trying to tame that tip-in throttle, that first quarter turn throttle on your bike. You might be able to tame it down a little bit with different power valve springs or a different setup, but that kind of defeats the purpose of this. Like, I wanted more power everywhere, and the only thing I noticed is that initial tip-in throttle. It made it so touchy, it just made it harder to ride. I didn't really benefit anything from it, and going from like 3/4 throttle to full throttle, like, you won't notice any difference. It performs very similar to the factory ignition after that quarter turn. I'm sure it does perform very slightly better in the higher RPM and everything, but it's not enough to notice it. For the average guy, I would say it's just gonna make things more difficult. So recap, high compression head, 100% worth it. I would run it like that all day long. Am I disappointed that I bought the SX race ignition? I still like riding the bike with that setup, but would I pay for it again? No, I wouldn't. On these older carbureted bikes, I just don't think you're getting the value and the performance out of these ignitions. I was expecting more from it. So I definitely wouldn't purchase it again, but that's just me. Some guys might like how touchy they are, and other guys might think it does perform a little bit better in the higher range, mid-range, but I didn't notice that. So my opinion, take it with a grain of salt. Now the newer TPI bikes, these are a totally different ballgame because you can just get them reprogrammed with the high compression heads, and your oil injection is a big part of that as well. So everybody knows those bikes run a little bit on the lean side from factory for emissions purposes. And I would definitely purchase the reflash because they reflash a little bit more oil into the tune, and that would be 100% worth it for reliability purposes. And they have a lot of drivability concerns. So that's a totally different ballgame. I would definitely still purchase it for the newer style bikes that aren't carbed. So if you're thinking of spending your hard-earned money on the high compression head and the ignition, hopefully this video gave you a little bit more insight on what it's actually like. And start with the high compression head, man. You don't have to buy them both together. I know everybody up-talks them as a pair. I would recommend just starting with the head, and you'll probably be pretty impressed. So cheers, guys.